Uncle Gary said he needed to crash with us for the night. And even though I explained that there were no more beds, I guess pirates are used to sleeping in weird places. This morning I could tell Dad wasn't thrilled to see Uncle Gary at the kitchen table, and after Uncle Gary filled him on everything he told me, Dad offered him money for a ferry ticket home. But Uncle Gary said he wasn't in a big hurry to leave, and that he felt like he could use a vacation himself. Mum seemed happy to have an extra person around to help carry our stuff down to the beach. But after what happened yesterday with the cooler, the beach was the last place I wanted to be. I suggested we take a break from the beach and do something else instead. Other people must have been thinking the same thing, because everyone started jumping in with different suggestions for what we could do today, and Uncle Gary chimed in with a few thoughts of his own, even though he just got here. She wants to go on a boat. He wants to fly, the dog wants to swim, and she wants to bowl. But Greg and Roderick, they haven't thought of something yet. Roderick wanted to go to a record store, and Dad was hoping to go deep sea fishing. Vincent wanted to take everyone to a cheese tasting, and the twins wanted to go to a rage room where you pay to destroy stuff. Uncle Gary was pushing to go parasailing, and Aunt Order wanted to go to sound healing place, which seemed like the kind of thing a person like her does for fun. But the idea I'd like best was to have a spa day, which was Aunt Veronica's suggestion. I let my toenails get a little long, and I thought it might be nice to have someone take care of them. I think everyone would have been happy to split up and do our own thing, but Mum didn't like that idea. She said Grandma wanted us to do stuff together, so we needed to come up with something we could all do. The only problem is that there aren't a whole lot of activities that would work for a group with this age range, so we narrowed it down to mini golf for a lighthouse tour, and I wasn't excited about either one. First of all, if you've ever been mini golfing with Manny, you know that it takes him forever to get through a round. Everyone behind us gets annoyed at having to wait for him to line up his shots, which are really stressful. And the last time we went mini golfing, Manny won a free round of sinking a hole in in the last hole, which meant we had to do it all over again. Aroo! But a lighthouse tour, which was Mum's idea, sounded even worse. Whenever we go on vacation, Mum always tries to squeeze in an education activity at a museum or historical site. And I don't know how Mum finds these places, but she always does. Candle making museum. Flash, flash. Sad, sad, sad. And they all think uninteresting, but Mum thinks it's really, really interesting because she's taking photos. Mum says kids have brain drain over summer vacation, which is why she's always looking for the opportunity to have us learn something. But I purposely put my brain in low power mode over the summer. My theory is that if I learn too much during summer break, then I'd be ahead of my peers when we get back to school in the fall. Then I might be so smart I'd have to skip a grade, which seemed like a bad idea to me, because I don't want to be the last one in my high school to get my driver's license. If everyone buckled up back there. I don't know what it is about guided tours and museums and stuff like that, but they sucked the energy right out of my body. In fact, last year when my class went on a field trip to a paper mill, I had to take a 3-hour nap after I got home to recover. If I were a superhero, a museum would be like my kryptonite. And if a supervillain wanted to finish me off, all they'd have to do is take me to the still life wing of an art gallery. If you look closely at the brush strokes, you can see the way the artist was experimenting with the interaction between light and color. No! Gasp! To make it fair, Mum had everyone write down which activity they wanted to do, then put the slips of paper in a bowl. And even though I didn't really want to go mini golfing, that's what I wrote down. The only one who couldn't vote was Vincent, since he's not an official member of the family. And even though that might seem a little harsh, rules are rules. The vote was split down the middle, with half the group voting for mini golf and the other half voting for a lighthouse tour. But Roger hasn't voted yet because he's been in the bathroom. Mum explained the two options to Roger and told he was deciding to him he is the deciding vote. But instead of just making a decision, he totally milked the situation. Roderick understood how much power he had, so he made people work to earn his vote. Each side tried to convince him to vote for their activity, but in the end, it all came down to what people were willing to pay. The mini golf people offered Roderick half a bag of potato chips and used a frisbee for his vote. But the lighthouse group offered an unopened box of assorted saltwater taffy and an extra bathroom shift, so he took the deal. And if you ask me, it's not right that the other side won because they had deeper pockets. We wasted too much time debating what we should do, though, because by the time we got to the lighthouse, there was a huge line. I was sure the tour was going to sell out and we were going to end up going to mini golfing after all. But then Mum bought tickets on her phone, which was like cutting the line. It turns out she snagged the last tickets for the 10 a.m. tour, which made everyone who had been waiting in the line ahead of us mad. Yes. Ding. Roderick saw an opportunity and he sold his spot on the tour to some random guy at the end of the line. I tried to sell my ticket, but Mum stopped me before I could find a buyer. And even though I wasn't able to get out of the lighthouse tour, Roderick gave me an idea I can use in future family get-togethers. The next time we have a family gathering, I'm gonna pay someone to take my place. Because there are a lot of events I'd skip if I could, like random relatives' birthday parties and cousins' kindergarten graduations. I guess I might have to pay extra for certain types of events, so I'll have to save up my money to get someone to sub for me on those ones. I'm sorry for your loss. Our tour guide told us all about the history of the lighthouse and what it's like to be a lighthouse keeper whose responsibility is to stop ships from crashing into the rocks at night. And even though it sounds like a pretty easy job, I'm sure I'd find a way to screw it up. He's too busy playing video games, zap zorp, while he's not concentrating and helping the ships. And this ship has crashed into the lighthouse at night. I figured the whole tour might take half an hour and then we could get on with our day. But the guide Roderick sold his ticket had a million questions, which our tour guide was happy to answer. How deep did they dig the counterweight well when the lighthouse was first constructed? So I'm so glad you asked. I'm sure Mum paid a lot of money for our tickets, but the people whose ticket we snatched from under them were listening in on our tour, even though they were pretending not to be. I guess Mum was annoyed that this family was trying to get a free ride, so she made sure they couldn't hear what our guide was saying. And eventually we got the hint and left. Hey, hey, woo-hoo-hoo! Clap, clap, clap. But by that point, I was eager to step inside to get out of the sun, but it was actually just as hot inside as it was outside. I thought there would be an elevator on the ground floor, but that would take us straight to the top. But we had to take stairs, and we got jammed because the 9:38 group had wrapped up their tour, and they were trying to make their way back down to the bottom. And with the heat and sweat, everyone's bodies pressed together, and it was all a little too much for me. But the time we finally made it to the top, I was desperate for some fresh air. Gasp! After we spent a few minutes up there, the tour guide said it was time to head back down. But I wasn't planning on going anywhere, and nobody could make me either. Apparently, it wasn't the first person to freak out in the middle of the lighthouse tour, and I guess the guides are used to dealing with this sort of thing. What? Clap, clap, clap. After that experience, I'd be happy to never see another lighthouse as long as I live. But Mum spent a lot of time in the gift shop, so I have a feeling I know what everyone's getting for Christmas this year. Tuesday. Tonight, I really wish we could have gone out to eat, but we had leftovers instead, or at least most of us did. Apparently, Dazzle is too good for leftovers, and she refused to eat the reheated spaghetti. Wave. So Vincent cooked a steak for Dazzle on the outdoor grill behind the house, then passed it through the bathroom window, and unfortunately, dinner was right in the middle of my shift. I can understand where the dog's coming from on leftovers, because I'm not really a fan myself. Lately, Mum been cooking all our meals for the week on Sunday night, and by Wednesday or Thursday, we're having things for the second or third time around. And if there's any food left from Friday night, Mum makes it together and serves it up like it's something new. And right before our trip, Mum took the leftovers lasagna, meatloaf, squash and taco salad from the week and put it all in the blender. I call this barnyard smoothie. Some people say leftovers taste better than the original meal, but I'm just not one of them. I don't think Dad's too crazy about leftovers either, and even though he'd never actually say it, but I've noticed that Dad always seems to be late coming home from work on Friday night, and I have a feeling that's no accident. Traffic was a nightmare. After we were done cleaning up tonight, Mum wanted to play board games just like her family used to do when they stay at the beach. Everybody was still a little annoyed with the Mum for coming up at the lighthouse tour, and nobody was really in the mood for any forced family fun, so most of us went into the living room to watch some mindless TV. But Mum was already one step ahead of everyone else because she had the remote. Click! Zap! Oh! We sat back down at the kitchen table and Mum took some old board games out of a cabinet. We started off playing a game where one person has to draw something on a piece of paper and everyone else has to guess what it is. But the game ended in the first round after Malvin do something rude. Next we played a game where one person is given a secret word and they have to get their team members to guess it before the time is up. The trick is that there are a bunch of other words on the card that the player is not allowed to say, and if they do, someone in the other team has to buzz them. And it's a metal box where put stuff you eat to keep it chilly. Buzz. Huh? Rats. Things fell apart when people started using the buzzer for stuff that didn't have anything to do with the game. And when Aunt Kiki brought up the boyfriend Mum stole from her when they were teenagers, Mum used the buzzer to cut her off. You'd think she'd just let me have him, but no. Buzz, buzz, buzz. I was glad Mum interrupted Aunt Kiki because the truth is that no kid really wants to hear about the people their parents used to date. Mum pulled out another board game to keep things moving, and it was one I'd never seen before. The box was falling apart, and she was ready to put it away and reach for another game. But Dad was excited because it was a game he said he used to play with his family, Boardwalk Baron. It was called Boardwalk Baron, and Dad explained that the goal was to buy up properties and bankrupt all the other players. Everybody seemed eager to give it a try except for Mum, who said a game like that taught people how to be greedy. So Mum pulled out a different game where one player reads a card with interesting facts about marine animals. Luckily, we still had the buzzer from that other game, and Roderick wasn't shy about using it. Did you know that a blue whale's tongue weighs as much as an elephant? Buzz! Everyone thought we should give Boardwalk Baron a try instead, but I guess Mum was pretty annoyed that she got overruled. So she said she was just gonna read in her room and then go to bed. The rest of us opened up the box and got out all the pieces, and we ran into the problem right away. There weren't enough game tokens, and everyone started grabbing one for themselves. Uncle Gary managed to snag the cowboy hat, but I guess Manny really had his heart set on that, one. So Manny swiped it and climbed on top of the kitchen cabinet until Uncle Gary finally agreed to just let him have it. Melvin and Malcolm both wanted to be the wagon, so they decided to play as one team. I wasn't quick enough to get an official playing token, so I had to use a dirty coin from Aunt Gretchen's purse. But anything was better than Uncle Gary's playing piece, which was a quarter of a meatball that someone found under the kitchen table. Once everyone had their playing pieces sorted out, it was time to learn the rules, but you practically had to have a college degree to understand the ins and outs of the game, so I figured I'd pick it up once we were actually started to play. If a player rolls a 9, but the product of the 2 dice is less than the number of hotels they have on their most expensive property, then the player must move back the number of spaces matching the sum of the 2 dice. Everyone understood the basic idea, which was that the person who had all the properties at the end of the game was the winner, and they got named the Boardwalk Baron. But everybody agreed there should be some sort of penalty for losing, so we started coming up with different ideas for punishments for the first person to go bankrupt. Roderick thought the loser should have to shave their eyebrows, but most of us thought that was too extreme. Uncle Guy said the loser should have to eat a gallon of mayonnaise, but that seemed kind of unsafe. Then Aunt Kiki came up with an idea. She said that the loser should have to go out on the boardwalk the next day and sing until people passing by put $20 in their hat. Everybody thought that was a great punishment for being the first one to get knocked out of the game, but no one was wanted to have to sing in the public. The only problem was that it made the game way too competitive, because once we started playing, everybody argued over everything little thing. On Aunt Gretchen's first roll of the game, one die landed on the table and one landed on the floor, and that turned into a heated debate about whether or not her roll counted. We finally agreed that both dice had to be on the table for a roll to count. Then on the very next table, and we waited 20 minutes to make sure it didn't fall on the floor. if you rolled double sixes, you landed in jail and had to sit out for 2 whole turns. But everybody felt like the punishment for landing in jail should be more serious than that. So we turned the portable crib into jail, and Aunt Veronica was the first one to land there. Whimper, whimper. The game was taking forever, and everybody was getting pretty tired. Aunt Audra said she wanted to forfeit so she could go to bed, and we could split up her money and properties. But everyone agreed that quitting was the same as going bankrupt, and I guess she really didn't want to have to sing on the boardwalk, so she made herself some coffee and powered through. The twins were struggling too, but they kept themselves in the game by taking turns napping. The only person who was wide awake was Manny, and that's because he was winning. Somehow he had bought a whole row of properties without people noticing, and he was loading them up with hotels. After a while, Manny had so many hotels on his properties that if someone landed on one, it would be game over for them. So he started charging people money to let them pass through his territory safely, and his fee wasn't cheap. Eventually, everyone was almost out of money, and no one could afford what Manny was charging for safe passage anymore. So people started offering to go to jail just so they could sit out a few turns and not risk landing on one of Manny's properties. And before long, it was too crowded to fit anyone else in the crib. The person who wanted to sing on the boardwalk the least was Dad, so he tried to strike a deal with Manny. He promised he'd get him a bike for his birthday if he could pass through his property safely the next round, but Manny was holding out for the cash up front. Dad didn't have any cash on him, so he had no choice but to roll the dice. And when he did, he landed on the property where Manny had the most hotels, which meant Dad was toast. Hooray! I guess we were being a little too loud because Mum came out of her bedroom and she didn't look happy about being woken up. With Dad out of the game, the rest of us started trying to figure out a good punishment for the second place loser. We decided it would be pretty funny if the person who went bankrupt next had to dump a milkshake on their own head. We couldn't decide if the milkshake should be chocolate or strawberry, so we asked Mom to settle it for us. But she decided we'd have enough fun for one night and announced that the game was officially over.